So thank you and welcome to the Pay It Forward Through Mentoring event brought to you by the Office of Alumni Relations. I am Nav Dhaliwal, a graduate of the University of Utah and a board member of the Alumni Association. The topic of mentorship is particularly important in today's ever-changing and tumultuous world. For our listeners, I hope that you can apply the guidance and insight of our expert panelists to help you navigate mentor-mentee dynamics to enhance clarity in your lives and further your respective careers. And on that note, I am beyond excited to introduce our elite group of panelists to this event today. But before I do that, you may have heard that our annual U Giving Day event started this morning. If you're able, we hope that you can contribute to an area on campus that's particularly meaningful to you. Mentoring is another way you can pay it forward by sharing your wisdom and experience to help a student or young alum take the next steps in their journey toward a successful career. So first, we're excited to hear first from Jim Olson, a Utah alum who went on to receive his master's degree in sports and recreation management from Northeastern University. Jim started selling tickets for the Utah Jazz in 1994, and in 2019, which is 25 years later, was named president of the Jazz and the Larry H. Miller Sports and Entertainment Group. He has served on the U Alumni board as well as the Crimson Club board and draws standing room only audiences whenever he speaks on campus. So first off, Jim, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your continued dedication to the U and your time away from the team mid-season. A very successful season, by the way. For those of you that don't know, the Jazz are the best team in the NBA. So Jim, would you mind sharing a little bit about, from your experience on both sides of mentorship, from the perspective of both the mentee and the perspective of the mentor?
Yeah, we always got to unmute first, right? I was enjoying listening to Nav so much that I forgot to unmute. But hey, thanks for having me today. It's great to be with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I love being as close to the University of Utah as possible. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but it means a lot to be, offered to share a few thoughts with you guys today, and hopefully I can share something that's of use and of value. But I'm a proud alumni, and there's many reasons why. And as far as mentoring goes, I've got a lot of different thoughts on mentoring. But let me talk about where my first real experience of mentoring happened. It actually started at the University of Utah. And, I think sometimes we think about mentoring as, there might be an age difference, someone with a little bit more experience in life, and they can mentor someone that's a little bit younger. But my first real valuable mentoring experience happened up at the University of Utah, but it didn't happen with someone that was any older. Actually, this person was a year younger than I was. And to kind of set the scene, I was finishing up my undergraduate work, as was mentioned, in communications, and I loved getting my degree in communications. I always enjoyed writing. I thought I would probably pursue something in writing along those lines, but I also love sports. I'd worked in the athletic department as a student intern and other positions as I was going to school at the U, and I love sports. And unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to pursue a career in sports, so I figured I'd chase the business side. But so I thought, with communications, I thought I might go into some type of journalism or broadcast journalism career. And I was actually working out at Channel 4 in their sports department. And I did that for about a year, for about my last year of school. And it was literally my last semester. I actually decided that's not what I wanted to do. And I didn't decide I didn't want to do it because I knew I wanted to do something else. I just knew I didn't want to do that. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I know that, it could have been a career, and I probably could have had a lot of fun, but there was just some things that I decided weren't right for me. And here I am graduating and graduating in a, and got my work experience in that field, and all of a sudden decided I didn't want to do it. And I remember one day specifically, I was walking across campus, and I had a good friend. He was I was, to be honest with you, very transparent. I was kind of an average student. I enjoyed school, but I enjoyed all aspects of it. I probably should have enjoyed the classroom a little bit more than I did, but I had a lot of fun while I was at the University of Utah, and I got involved in a lot of different areas and made a lot of really good friends. But I had a good friend, and as I said, he was actually a year younger than I was, but this friend just happened to be the student body president of the school at the time. And great guy, someone we all looked up to, had accomplished many great things. I was walking across campus. I can see this moment as clear as day. And I was just out in front of the Marriott Library there, walking across that little plaza, and I bumped into Andy. Andy was my friend. I bumped into Andy, and he just was full of enthusiasm. He's like, I've been looking for you. And as the student body president, he participated in participated in a conference where people from universities all around the country had come to the University of Utah to participate in this particular conference. I don't know what it was. And he said, but I sat next to this guy, and this guy, he was with this Northeastern University, and he was telling me about, he runs this sports management program, and he sat and was telling me about this program. And Jim, all I could think about was you. And I just kept thinking, like, this is perfect for you, because he knew I had a passion for sports and wanted to do something in sports. And back then, these types of degrees are common. They're all over the country now. There's sports management degrees in schools all over the country. But back at the time, I think there were just 3, and this was one of them. And so I'd never heard of it. And like I said, I had no idea where I was going and what I was going to do now that I was graduating and kind of trying to figure things out. And I got the contact information. His name's Dr. Morrison. I got Dr. Morrison's contact information. I went home and I called him. You guys got to remember, this is before internet and emails and anything, and even before cell phones. And so I went home and I called Dr. Morrison and asked about the program, and he asked about me a little bit. And he said, well, you got to take the GMAT. And I didn't even know what the GMAT was. Like I said, I was kind of a real average student at best. And anyway, I spent the whole spring studying every day for the GMAT. I took the GMAT and was able to get into Northeastern, and I guess you could say, the rest is history a little bit. Went back to Northeastern, got my master's degree, and I love Utah. I love the mountains. I love, out the lifestyle out here. So I moved back, and as was mentioned, I got this job. But I go back to my experience with Andy. The fact of the matter is, Andy was looking out for someone other than himself. Maybe that's why he was able to become the student body president, because he knew what was good for a lot of other people and not just him. And he was the type of guy that always wanted to serve and help others out. But had I not had that moment, I don't know where my life would have gone and what I would have ended up doing and so forth. And I just think about, sometimes there is a formal aspect of mentoring, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I want to stay within my time frame here, but there is a formal aspect of mentoring. But I think there's we'll call it an informal aspect of mentoring, and that's looking out for each other. That's for Andy to come try to find me and track me down. Once again, he couldn't text me, couldn't call me. He had to find me, and found me walking across campus because he was so excited to tell me about this graduate program. And he didn't know what was going on in my mind. He didn't know I was kind of lost and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was just the most great timing, but it was an opportunity for someone to look out for me and give me some advice and give me thoughts and give me an idea that really changed the course of my life. And so I think when we think about mentoring, we have the opportunity. We can mentor people every day in an informal sense, meaning, look for opportunities that may be good for them. Look for opportunities that may fit what they're looking for. Give them friendly advice. I needed a lot of advice at that time. And so I always look back at that experience, and I place a lot of value on having good friends that had my best interest in mind. Another aspect, maybe on the more formal side of mentoring, once I got the job with the Jazz, I was very fortunate to be hired by a man named Jay Francis. Jay had worked for the Jazz for a long time, and it was very clear to me, there was never a conversation of Jay saying, "Hey, I'm going to be your mentor." That conversation never happened, but it was very clear to me that Jay was looking out for me. And I want to share an experience that's always stuck with me. And Jay had asked me to report on something one day, and not really report, but he'd asked me, he'd sent me an email and said, "Hey, I'm wondering where we are on this." And so I went into his office, and I kind of went down a list of all these problems. This isn't working, and we're having a problem with this, and no one's listening here, and no one's trying this. And I listed all of them, and then I kind of stopped, and he looked up at me and he said, "Hey, Jim, I want you to bring me solutions, not problems." And I've always looked at that because it was a mentoring moment. It was a moment for him to teach me something. He could have very easily given me the solutions to the problems that I brought him, but that's not what he knew I needed for me to grow. And so I'll just tell you that, part of mentoring is not always giving the answers. It's often giving them the opportunity to figure out how to grow, giving them the opportunity to figure out how to find the solutions, not just the problems. And since that day, and that day was probably 25 years ago, 26 years ago, I've never walked into my boss's office with a problem. I've always walked into my boss's office with a solution. And finally, in the last couple of minutes, let me just share one more thought. I've been on the receiving end of incredible mentors, just the best mentors. Like I said, some maybe informal and some very formal, and helping me try to grow my career. And a couple of years ago, I was challenged by one of the leaders in our company to go be a mentor for somebody. And I really struggled with it. I was like, how do I go to someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to be your mentor"? Like, who am I to say I can mentor anybody? And I actually sat on it for about a year. And after about a year, I finally decided, I've got to do something with this. And I called someone up that I knew, and this was the case. He was, I don't know, 10, 15, probably 15 years younger than I am. And I called him up, and we knew each other, but we didn't know each other really well. And I just kind of said, "Hey, I don't want this to be awkward, but maybe there's something I can help you with. Maybe there's something I can." And fact of the matter is, he was going through a time where he was looking, it didn't happen right away, but shortly thereafter, he was actually looking at a career change. He was looking at some things in his personal life that he was trying to figure out. And it was that single call that I thought was a very awkward call. Like, how's it going to be received that I think I can call someone up and offer him my help? And, and I was really insecure about that. But this individual really was receptive to it. And we've developed a friendship. We go to lunch, we hang out, we both fly fish, we go fly fishing together. And we, now COVID, we don't talk like we were, but we get together every couple months and just connect. And I just feel, once again, not that I have anything to really offer, but just offering the opportunity that he knows he's got someone he can bounce things off of. Once again, going through a career change and going through other aspects of his life. And so it's been, I didn't do it for me. It's been very, very rewarding on my end to feel like I've helped a little bit. But it's been more valuable to see that, he's been able to maybe get some guidance on career change. And once again, I didn't give him answers. He would come to me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this." I didn't say, "Oh yeah, you got to go take this job." I just said, let's talk about the two jobs, the one you're doing, the one that you're thinking about. And I let him talk through it. And I let him talk about the positives over here, the negatives over here, the positives over here, the negatives over here. And, he made the decision on his own. So when I mentored, it wasn't about giving him answers or giving solutions, but it was more about just having someone that he could talk through things with. And I hope I've provided value, because like I said, I've been on the receiving end of incredible mentorship. It's so valuable. And many of you are a lot, probably all of you are a lot younger than I am. And think of the story of Andy. Like, you don't have to be a career veteran with tons of experience. Andy was a student at the University of Utah and mentored me that changed my life. My first boss mentored me to help me figure out something very important, of bringing solutions and not problems. And I've just tried to pass that on, and I hope I can continue to do it at some level. But thank you. That's kind of my experience. I know we've got some incredible guests that probably have a lot more to share than I do. So I'll kind of leave it at that. And I think we have some questions later. But Nav, thanks for giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say, wow, what a wonderful, thoughtful, and holistic, just explaining those solutions and explaining, your perspective was so wonderful and insightful. So I appreciate that. And so next we have Reina Villegas, a U alum with a bachelor's and master's degrees from the College of Social Work. Reina's early mentors encouraged her to become a mentor, which she definitely took to heart. Volunteering with multiple student resource programs, both through the Salt Lake Community College and the U, most recently with the mentorship for social justice program in the U's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So Reina, thank you for being here today. Tell us how you transitioned so quickly from being mentored to becoming a passionate mentor for so many fellow students.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's really an honor to be here. So when I think about myself and my life, when I was in high school, I didn't really have a mentor at that time. I thought that was the end for me. It's like, well, I can't go to college. I can't do anymore. But then, so I came across to the Salt Lake Community College, and then there were a group of students that helped me out. They encouraged me. So a little bit about my background. My dad is a single parent. He never went to school, so he doesn't have, so I didn't have that background of somebody encouraging me, aiding me. So I'm the first generation in my family to actually get a master's degree as well. So those group of students, when I came to Salt Lake Community College, they encouraged me. They always encouraged me to do more than I could. When I doubted myself, they'd be like, no, you can do this, you got this. And so that really lifted me up, because I never had that experience. My dad didn't really know the system around the school. And so having those students that were peer mentors guiding me through, it's like, okay, so you have to take this class, you have to do this. That really helped me to actually get my degree and actually graduate with my associates at Salt Lake Community College. After that, because of their encouragement, I was able to be part of their group, became a secretary, and then at the U, with their encouragement, I was able to become a vice president for the Crimson Transparency Society, things that I wouldn't have done without their mentoring. It was just their mentoring, how they guide me through, that it really it opened up opportunities. Before, I didn't know about scholarships, FAFSA, any extracurricular activities. I didn't know any of that. But then my mentors, hey, have you heard about this? Have you heard about the scholarships? Have you heard about? And so all those just open up and my perspective, and just guide me through. It was okay, I got this now. And then with that, it really encouraged me to help others, because I know there were others that didn't have that opportunity, that emotional support from their family as well. And so with me coming in and just helping them out, and Jim Olson was saying, sometimes it's just about exploring and having them not giving them the answer, but more guiding them through. Is okay, let's think about all the possibilities if you do this versus this, right? And the good and bads, and that really has helped my mentees just look into the bigger picture holistically, and not just one thing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
We appreciate it. Thank you for sharing such wonderful examples as well. It's great to hear that those commonalities, and how both of you guys touched upon how mentors introduce you to resources, and how beneficial and impactful that was in both of your guys' lives and perspectives. And so finally, I would like to introduce Pat Vaughn. She is one of our U Alumni career coaches, as well as a dedicated mentor. So thank you, Pat, for sharing your experience and advice today. Tell us what you've learned as both a professional career coach and a volunteer mentor.
Oh, I'll be glad to. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this wonderful panel. I've learned so much just hearing Raina and Jim, and I wanted to jump in a million times there. I've gotten such great feedback on all of these sessions that the alumni group presents. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. When I look at my career specifically and the success in my career, I look back and I say there are two people who have influenced my entire life. And those I would call, in an informal relationship, mentors. That's who they are. And what made them very, very special is that, as both Jim and Raina pointed out, they cared about me. So beyond my success from a tactical perspective, they really formulated who I became as a woman, as a person, as I grew through my career. And I think that that's really what the vital role of a mentor is that they have the opportunity to really help formulate who you are. They have to be a willing ear, and you have to be a willing receptor of what they have to say. Mentors frequently have to give some tough love sometimes. You want to work with someone who is strong enough to be able to see your good points, but also be strong enough to deliver the feedback that you need to go to the next move. So a lot of people ask us the question, well, what's the difference between a career coach and a mentor? A mentor is really a longer-term relationship. As I mentioned, the two people in my life that were most influential, and by the way, one was a woman, but one was a man. And what I really liked that Jim mentioned to us is that we always think we want to be mentored by someone who can understand us. So I want to find someone just like me. But the truth is, you don't want someone just like you. You want someone very different than you so that they can help guide you through the information and the people and the other relationships you don't understand. I love the fact that Jim also mentioned that his first mentor was someone that was young. Mentors don't have to have gray hair. They don't have to be in a senior leadership role. One of the best thing a mentor can do for themselves is at a very early point in their career, less than 5 years in the workforce, is to go out and mentor young people, because you have that ability to relate to each other because you are closer in age. And the frame of reference, for example, going through COVID now, who would have ever thought about this? But it takes someone almost in your own peer group to really understand what you personally are going through and how you can maneuver that. Career coaching is a more formalized relationship. It's tactical, it's strategic, you have a plan, you have an objective, and your career coach is going to hold your hand to the fire to help you get there. They're going to make you accountable. A mentor is going to be a guiding light for you. A mentor will serve as someone that you're not afraid to ask the silliest of questions to. And as you mature in your career, as Jim said, you still want to pick up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing personally? I want to thank you for what you have contributed to me in my life. Does that help answer some of your questions, Dave?
That does. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And I love the this distinction between the mentor and a career coach. That was very helpful. And so we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to jump straight into the questions that our attendees want each of you panelists to have answered. So for the first question, this is to all of you panelists. Can you share what has been one of the most impactful things a mentor has helped you with in your respective career? And anyone feel free to jump in and go first. And if not, I'll be happy to choose one of you guys.
I want to hear what Raina has to say. I bet she's got something really good on this one.
Yeah, so I have so many, so I'm like thinking which one. So one of the most impactful, I would say, it's Luz Gamara at Salt Lake Community College. When I felt lost, she was there for me. She encouraged me to actually like be more than myself. There was a time where I would come to her office and just cry because I was like, I don't know what to do. And so she would just be like, okay, let's think about like the situation. And it was mostly because I felt overwhelmed with everything with the school. Just learning about like college, something that was new to me, something that I didn't know. And so just having her there being, I would say like, she never like she doesn't have a tag of a mentor, but she became a mentor. She was an advisor, and her having like an open door for any students to just come in and just talk about like your experiences or like what we were going through. She really was there for me. She was like a mom that I've never had, somebody that would guide me through. So we became families, like with all the mentors. It just becomes family because they're there for you. They're like encouraging you. They're caring for you. And when you doubt yourself, or she was like a parent, like asking me like questions about, okay, so if you do this, like what's gonna happen? And so I really love her. She's amazing, and that's one of my mentors that I really that I always look up to her, because as not having somebody like as a mother or role model, she was like a role model for me. Just looking at her and be like, I want to be like her. She helps students. She's always there for them. She listens to them, and so that encouraged me also to be more of a mentor as well. So that was my experience.
Awesome.
Raina just pointed out something that's really exciting. And I think a good mentor is someone who is invested in your success, that your success brings about their self-fulfillment. You know, one of the things, and I know Jim does this too, I'm on job boards all the time. It's my life. It's what I have done for my entire career. I've been on job boards. And still, when I see jobs posted that I think someone that I knew 10 years ago might benefit from, I send them the job posting and I'll say, hey, I don't know if you're interested or not, but look at this job posting. Maybe you know someone, or maybe this could be a new move for you. What do you think? And that's because someone else's success makes my success and it fulfills me. So that's the role of a mentor.
Awesome.
You're
Thank
shaking
you.
your head.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no, that's all such great, valuable information. I was just reminded, one of the great mentors I had, I'm actually going to use her name. She means so much to me. She worked at the University of Utah. I think it was for over 35 years in the athletic department. Her name was Liz Abel, and I was a student intern under Liz, and Liz was the sports information director, and probably one of the best writers I've ever known. And I got this job, and as a student intern, we had to do write-ups for some of the other sports. I think this one in particular was for baseball, and Liz said, hey, this is what you do, and kind of gave me, the instructions. And then she said, turn it in and then I'll edit it. And then, we'll be good to go. And, knowing in the back of my mind that Liz was going to edit it, I kind of did I don't know, probably didn't put my best effort into it. I thought, well, I'll give her the content, then I'm going to let her edit it, and I'm good. And I turned it in, and I came back the next day, and on my desk, it was back, and it was all marked up in red ink. And this goes to what Pat said that I think is so important. You got to have mentors that are willing to give you a little bit of tough love and teach you a hard lesson. And I look at it, and there's just red marks all over my paper. And I take it into Liz, and I'm a little embarrassed, and she kind of looks up to me and says, hey, let's sit down and let's talk. Let's go through this. And we sat down at her desk, and she walked through every red mark that she had put on this piece of paper. And I learned two really, really valuable things out of that. One is, don't turn anything in that's not your best work, because you'll be a little embarrassed, as well as probably some other consequences. And two, Liz as a mentor didn't just do the red marks and say, okay, it's edited, turn it in. She sat down with me and took the time to show me where I didn't write so well. And it was always such a valuable lesson to me. And I still consider Liz one of my great mentors, where I learned so much from her. And that was one of the great lessons I learned.
Fantastic. Thank you. I have a similar experience. So when I was chief operating officer for Neighborhood Salt Lake, my boss, Maria Garcia, she was a CEO, and oftentimes I would just go into her office, wanting solutions, and she would always just, hey, she would always guide me. She would always say, I think you might want to contact this individual, but she would never give me the answer, outright. And it ended up helping me out so much in developing my skills, because otherwise she could have just given me the answer, but that would have done me a disservice. And so, it's interesting, to echo sort of what, Raina, Jim, and Pat have said, and to hear those similarities is quite excellent. And so our next question is directed towards Pat. So young professionals hear a lot about both networking and mentoring. How are these career strategies related?
Well, I think the first thing that everyone needs to really think about hard is, how did you get your last job? And at the very basis of it, I think you will recognize that somewhere in there is the seed of networking. So there's lots of job postings out there. It goes into some deep, dark hole for most individuals applying for jobs. The key to success in your career is networking. So there's formal networking, which is a little more difficult during our new COVID life here, but that's where you are part of associations, you participate in Zoom seminars, you professionally network. Mentoring is another aspect, because when you mentor, you begin to open up that other person's book of contacts, and voila, automatically you have exponentially increased your network, because you have tapped into their knowledge, their contacts, and their relationships. So as I would just like to really stress, especially since this is Giving Day here at the University of Utah, is that the one greatest thing you personally can do, not only for yourself and your heart, but for your career, is to mentor someone. And it doesn't matter what phase you are in, because that not only helps someone, but it also expands you. One of the things that they say, the best way to learn something is to try to teach something. And I would say that also for mentoring. And that's why I thought it was so great that Jim really pointed out someone that was actually younger than him was able to mentor him. And that individual got to learn while they were teaching Jim what Jim needed to learn as well. So networking is absolutely key. Again, you have formal networking. Mentorship is an informal networking, but it's really about relationships. And that's the key to success always.
Excellent. So our next question is directed towards Jim. You must see mentoring occur throughout the Jazz organization. What's one element of sports mentoring that is universal?
I think the one element that's universal, Pat touched on it earlier, it's caring for the person. If you're teaching someone, and there's a correlation. I actually used to teach. I stopped about 2 years ago. I hope to do it again one day. But I used to teach a course up in the business school, the business of sports, and I hope to get back and be able to teach it when I find time again. But I'm teaching those students, but I didn't get to know all of them, so there wasn't this. I don't really, not to sound harsh, but that I don't care about that person. I don't know them. I'm just trying to teach, and they're giving me back what they're learning, and it's a course. And sometimes in teaching, you do learn to care for the person, but in mentoring, you always care for that person. There is a real connection. You care for their welfare, you care for their future, you care for even their family or other aspects of their life, their career. And when that exists, it's amazing the progress or the good work that can be done. I'll share this thought. When some of you may not think about this, but we have Coach Quinn Snyder, who I think is the best coach in the NBA, but he's not just drawing up X's and O's on the court of where players should go and how they should pass and screen and pick and shoot. And he's actually mentoring those players in all aspects of their lives. And it's helping them. If he can mentor them in an area over here, maybe it doesn't have exactly something to do with basketball, but he's mentoring them. He's doing two things. He's kind of helping them take care of something that could be a frustration in their lives. So that's eliminated so that they really can focus on basketball. And then when they come to focus on basketball, they trust him. There's a trust there. And so I think the universal quality is that when you're mentoring, you truly care for somebody.
Thank you for that response. And I feel as if, though, when you care for somebody, it makes the relationship more meaningful, because I think everyone has come in contact with somebody who wants to help, but that comes across as a little transactional. And, when you start caring for it, it allows for individuals to connect with one another and make that relationship more meaningful. And I feel as if, though, people are more receptive to advice when there is that meaningful relationship. And so our next question is directed towards Raina. Could you tell us a little bit more about the mentoring objectives in the mentorship for social justice program?
Yes. So, sorry, just like got me off guard. Okay, so so the mentorship program, their main objective is to connect undergraduate students to mentors, or what we call femtors. The word femtors comes from the word family and the word mentor, which is combined to be more inclusive of everybody. That's what we call femtors. As a femtor, you are guiding, advising the femtee to reach their success. The femtorship program also creates that space for femtees to share their experiences and support femtees to become leaders in our community, whether it's at the University of Utah or outside in our community. As a femtee, or no, wait, hold on, not femtee, femtor myself. Femtee is like what we call mentee. As a femtor myself, I've been mentoring 2 students, and this is my second year, and just seeing their success. I'm doing social work, or I graduated in social work, and my femtees are doing social work. So they're going through the process of like applying for their master's or applying for their bachelor's. And for me, being able to aid them and just talk about my experiences, like, and sharing like where to apply for scholarships, or even talk about the classes when they're struggling about one class, like, hey, I need help with this class. I'm like, okay, I went through this class. I know this teacher, so let's talk about this. So that's what, like, it's just like a connection between a femtor who has experience and a femtee. But I think at the same time, as a femtor, I'm also learning myself, like things that I've probably forgotten, or things that I've probably missed during class. I don't know. And they're just like reminding me of things and learning along with my femtee. So.
Awesome. We appreciate that. And so this next question, I feel as if, though, it's quite necessary, given the tumultuous climate that we're facing, that's caused by obviously our political climate and the coronavirus. And a lot of people are obviously looking for a mentor in some way, shape, or form within their respective lives. How would you guys suggest that somebody, tries to formulate a relationship or seek a mentor? And we'll start with you, Jim.
Well, as I gave my 2 examples, or I guess I've given more than 2. I mean, some were the ones that I was on the receiving end and were probably just a little bit more natural and organic, being in a job or being a friend of someone, and they just kind of evolved because these people probably saw I was in a lot of need of mentorship, and they picked up the pieces for me. But it's also okay. Like I explained, I wanted to give back. I wanted to do something to help. I wanted to be on the giving end of mentorship. And it was weird. It took me a year to do it, but I picked up the phone and I did it. And it's been one of the most rewarding things. So I think it really can go either way. You can find yourself in a relationship where it's naturally going to happen, and take advantage of that. once you sense it's naturally going to happen, take advantage of it, do it. But also don't be afraid to call someone up and say, hey, I need a mentor. And I'm not going to require you to go to lunch with me once a month. And, I'm not saying you have to set these guidelines, but just say, I don't know, maybe it's an occasional email or a text or an occasional phone call. Maybe we get together, but man, I could use a mentor. Don't be afraid to ask. And then vice versa, like I had such a hard time doing, don't be afraid to reach out to someone and just say, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but if you ever need someone, I'm here. And it's weird, but do it. It's worth it.
And I think Pat, I was going to actually just say, and Pat, to transition that question, what are some effective ways from your perspective?
Well, I think, Jim just hit on something. I think we would be surprised how many times in our life, both school life and work life, people have said, hey, if you need something, let me know. And we just fluff it off as though, okay, I will. And the fact is that they have just unlocked and opened a door for you. So seize that moment and say, yeah, can we do lunch when we're allowed to have it? Or can we do a Zoom lunch together? So to take those opportunities that just seem like they're just just there, and really seize on it and see if there's something that clicks. Be an active part of that. If I currently were an alumni of the U, we live in the galactic headquarters, not only for volunteerism here in Utah, but for people wanting to give. It's just built into our culture here. And so the University of Utah has an incredible mentoring program where they can, help you find a mentor in your field. But more than that, I would pick up the phone and I would call the Alumni Association and say, hey, I'm 3 years out of school. I want to be a mentor for someone. Can you help align me? And this is what I'm really good at. And oh, by the way, I'm looking to be mentored as well. So you're giving and you're receiving at the same time. So that's what I would do.
Fantastic. I appreciate those answers. And so for those of you that don't know, the University of Utah now has a system called Alumni Fire, which allows students at the University of Utah and alumni members to be connected to mentors. And so it is a wonderful resource worth checking out. In addition to the wonderful advice that we had heard by these wonderful, wonderful panelists. And so for our next question, I would like to ask, who was your first mentor? And did you realize you were being mentored? Or did that happen later on? And Raina, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay. So one of my first mentors, I'm trying to think back. I think, so when I came to the United States, so I'm originally from Mexico. When I came to the United States, I didn't speak English. It was just Spanish. So going to my class, I think my teacher at that time, Lovejoy, that was her name. She was my first mentor. I remember that one time she actually made me stay in class and not go on recess because I couldn't pronounce the word the, so I could say the. So she was mentoring. She took time of her during her lunch hour just for me to practice the word the, because I couldn't pronounce that. So she was my first mentor. And when I think about that, at that time, I was a kid. I was like, I want to go outside. I want to go out and play. So I don't want to be practicing this word. But she took her time and she was really patient with me. We sat the whole recess time or lunch hour right there, just practicing that word. And so I would say that she was one of my first mentors when I came here to the United States. She really cared about me and she really wanted me to succeed and learn English. So yeah, so that was my first mentor.
Fantastic. And then Pat, can I have you answer the same question?
I can. It would be a real flip of the coin, but I will share a story, especially since Raina has been so candid about saying that she wasn't born with a silver spoon. I wasn't either. I came from a very ethnic family, was the first in my family to graduate from high school, actually, and went on to college, paid for myself 100% because my family didn't believe girls needed an education. So I found myself on Wall Street, a little girl from Ohio in a very big city in New York. And just coincidentally, I was in a field, because it was Wall Street, that was very dominated by men. And one of the just most endearing stories that I will remember is I was invited to a lunch. I have no idea why, to be honest with you. I couldn't contribute anything, but I was at a full table where I was the only woman and there were 8 men. So I thought, okay, well, this is really fun. And then I realized that I was sitting there and looking, and no one was eating their lunch. And I wasn't sophisticated enough to know that as the only woman at the table, they were waiting for me. They were waiting for me to pick up my fork. And there was so much silverware on there, I didn't know which fork to pick up. And I'm just being very honest. So the person that was next to me, who I will thank my entire life, simply hit me on the side with his elbow and gently pointed to the fork. And I thought, the fork, that fork. Oh, that's the fork I need to use. And I picked up the fork, had my little first bite of salad, and the rest of the table then started to eat, never realizing they must have been starving. But they were all so kind to me. And both Raina and Jim have pointed out, it's the kindness that we share. And that's really what mentorship is about. Not embarrassment, but kindness.
That is such a terrific example. Thank you for sharing that. And Jim?
Yeah, if you're okay, I'd like to actually twist it a little bit, maybe flip it upside down, because I think Raina and Pat have just given such incredible stories and examples, and I'm touched by them, very, very touched by their stories. So I want to flip it around, and maybe instead of my first, I'm going to talk about one of my more recent ones. And I've never really thought about this as this person being a mentor until just as these stories were being shared. And I'm going to go through a short embarrassment phase and kind of very open and transparent phase to show maybe a weakness and a short side on me, but maybe that there's hope for people like me. But and please let me get through the whole story before you make a final judgment, because if you make the judgment on the first half of the story, you're not going to like me at all, and you're going to think I'm a terrible person. But I actually grew up on the east side of Salt Lake City, and I was given every opportunity. I didn't have to worry about if I was going to be able to pay for school, or I didn't have to worry about certain things that I know a lot of people, have to worry about. And going through that time in my life, I wasn't aware of that. I just thought everybody was probably like me, and growing up in an all white neighborhood of an all white, area and an all white high school, and going to the University of Utah 30 years ago, we were all very white and not very diverse. And anyway, I thought when I moved back to Boston, I thought I kind of got educated and learned some things, but boy, I will tell you, it's only been in the last 6 or 7 years of my life where my eyes have been opened like they were never opened before. And that's because it's because a son who he's now graduated from the U, and I'm very proud of him, but he kind of grew up like I did, but he didn't like maybe that pathway. He got up to the U and he kept switching his major. And I got frustrated because, like, how many majors are you going to, can you figure it out? Let's get on with it. And he found the major peace and conflict. And he would come home from these classes, and for the first time ever, he was so passionate. And he would come home and he would start asking me questions. Dad, what do you think about Malcolm X? And I'd say, well, I'd give him my opinion of Malcolm X. And he'd go, well, did you ever think about it this way? And I hadn't. And I would like, here was a 22, 23. You know, 22, I thought I had all the answers. I was 50 years old, 45 years old, and, making progress in my career. And all of a sudden I had a son who was teaching me things that I'd never known or never looked at it out of that, that way of looking at it. And it's changed my world. It's changed how I view things. It's changed how I approach my job here. It's changed how I approach things with my own family and my own friends. And it's caused me and others to have discussions we would have never had. And so I think of a mentor, now a 26-year-old boy, I call him a boy because he's my son, so I still got to call him a boy, but a 26-year-old boy who just completely changed how I view people, how I view things, how I can care for others that I never thought needed caring for, never thought needed a chance, needed an opportunity. And I apologize, I get a little emotional, but it's probably because I'm so embarrassed that it took me this long in my life to learn this lesson. I'm very embarrassed, but equally so, I'm very happy that better late than never. And so once again, just the power of someone that cares, that wants to help you see and learn and get better and just have new opportunities to grow. And I've got so much respect for Raina's story and Pat's story and so many others out there. And I just have utmost respect, and you're going to do it. You're going to do it. And thanks for letting me share that.
What a touching story, Jim.
Seriously, thank you all for sharing such touching examples. It's just so wonderful. I think also, what Jim had mentioned, Pat mentioned, Raina had mentioned. I think what we can all do is we can all learn from people who are different than us, and we can really whether they're younger, whether they come from different backgrounds, whether they come from different perspectives. There's always something new to learn. And it's critical that we have those conversations to help us reevaluate our ways of thinking and to help, further refine who we are. So sincerely appreciate, all of those touching examples. And I want to just end on this final question. Did you have something to say, Pat?
Yeah, I just really wanted to pick up on Jim and what you have said. If I were to give some advice, the number one advice is to pick a mentor that's different than you. Someone who is perhaps culturally different, someone who is ethnically different, age different, gender different. I was at the formative phases of Utah Women in Technology. And while that was a wonderful support group for women who were in technology, I would encourage each of them to go out and not get a woman for a mentor. Go out and get someone in technology that was probably a man. And so I would really encourage, just because of Jim's story, how another perspective can really open your eyes to seeing new things. And I think people would find, especially in this day and age where we really have such an emphasis on diversity and understanding other people that are different than us, I think it's really important to have a mentor who can present that to you as well.
Thank you. And so for our final question, I want to sort of tie everything in, and a lot of us, a lot of individuals, a lot of undergraduate students are struggling at the moment. It's hard to find jobs. It's hard to strive for your goals. There's a lot of challenges that have been caused by a myriad of things in recent times in the world that we're living in. So I just want to the final question I want to ask everyone is, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to an individual, an undergraduate who's having a hard time striving for their career goals, striving to find their career path, and so on? And we'll start with Raina on this one.
I always say never give up, but the one thing, since we're talking about mentoring, it would be your network, right? Always, like as Pat mentioned, your network is the one piece. Like I'll say how I got all these jobs myself. I started volunteering for the Salt Lake City Public Library, and I saw my work, and so they actually encouraged me to apply, even though I was so scared to apply. At that time, I had a manager. She's like, "Okay, show me your resume," and I'm like, And at that time, I didn't have a resume, so I was barely out of high school, and so she's like, "Okay, let's do this," and so she helped me do it, and she encouraged me, and it was just that network of like me seeing my work and how I worked, and even here at Comunidades Unidas, I just called her and say, hey, I noticed that like COVID is happening. How are you holding up with the organization? How can I help? And I was coming in more as a volunteer. She's like, oh, we have a job. You want it? So it was more like of that networking of like for me to find those jobs. And it comes to the mentoring as well, right? And also finding mentors. Your network is going to be like your best, what is the word? Well, your best guide to help you find either a mentor or help you with school or your job. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Thank you. Very insightful. And I would agree with what you said. We'll turn the time over to Pat and then we'll finish with Jim.
Thank you, Nave. If you're an undergraduate and you're confused, first of all of us have admitted to being confused. Confusion is just a part of life. So there is no embarrassment in being confused. But if you're an undergraduate currently going through school, and just like Jim mentioned, you don't know what direction to go, get some help now. You have student advisors, you have counselors to go to. And if it's in a career move, go to your career center right now. It's free while you're in school, and for 1 year after you graduate, they can help you write your resume, get you going on the right path to finding the career job that you're looking for. And I won't be ashamed to do a plug for career coaching, which is what I do quite passionately. If you're an alumni, there are 4 terrific career coaches listed right there on the alumni page. Pick one that you think can help you based on who you are, and get going. Don't waste any more time. They can direct you. They can help understand where you want to go and hold your feet to the fire and get there. 100% success rate for those who really want to try. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you what I would do. I'd go find people like Raina and Pat and get really close to them and talk about networking. I mean, I wish I would have had this kind of experience when I was walking across the Marriott Plaza, lost and dazed and confused and just not sure where I was going. And if I would have had Raina and Pat, I probably would have saved a lot of time and a lot of stress. And that's exactly what they just said. There are people out there that are willing to help. Even though it may look like, I can't remember the days. It seems like I was in college yesterday. It really, really does. And there's so many things I would do over if I could do it over again, so many different things. And having that career coach, having that mentor, finding that person will eliminate a lot of those things that you want to do over later in life. And so it's just, be proactive. The fact that you are on this call today means you're trying to do something. It means you're trying to take that step or figure out that next question and find that next answer. And so I commend you. You're doing it, but be willing to take that next step. And I love the university. I love the leadership at the University of Utah. The people that are making so many great things happen in this community. And there are people there, and there's people out of the university. If I had it my way, I wish I could say, hey, I'll find time and I'll try to mentor people more here that are on this call, but I'm not sure I have that time right now, but maybe one day I will. But just find the opportunity, find the Pats, find the Rainas, find those that can help you take the right step. And they're there and they're going to do great things for you.
So networking, never give up, reaching out for career coaches. Wow, such wonderful and thoughtful perspectives. And I think that our viewers are really going to benefit from this session today. And on that note, I want to, say thank you to our panel for sharing your wonderful and valuable experience. And thank you to our alumni audience. We'll be sending you an email with a link to a recording of this event to share with friends or colleagues, as well as resources mentioned during the session. I hope you all celebrate U Giving Day with us today and join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for our annual Founders Day celebration, which is Thursday at 7 p.m. Thanks again to our panelists and to all of you watching today. Stay safe and go Utah.